Hi and welcome to Dissecting Dexter. I'm your host, Gareth Watkins, coming to you from deepest Yorkshire on what's been a pretty blowy March day. Mother's Day here in the UK. However, with my own mum 200 miles away and COVID still preventing a visit, and my wife out at work, it's been a quiet day. And I've been able to watch another 3 season 2 episodes of a certain serial killer show. I call it my re-watch. No note taking, no podcast to do about them, just watch and enjoy. And maybe we'll talk about the delights of season 2 later, but I want to get us on topic. When I did my catch-up podcast late last year, I promised that we'd get together to chat about the forthcoming Dexter revival. Filming is currently underway for season 9, and while there are no plot details out there yet, I thought now might be a nice time to collect our thoughts, spoiler-free, and think about what the new season might have in store. I say spoiler-free, there's been a bit of casting news and some information about where they're filming at the moment, but I don't consider most of that terribly spoilery. Now, I'm not on my own today. I've got 2 old friends of the podcast who've kindly returned at short notice, both who I think have been missing the Dexter conversation and are brimming full of speculation about what season 9 will bring. Firstly, from the 4Player Gaming podcast at 4playernetwork.com. So you got your plug in there. It's Nick Henderson. Hi, Nick.
Hello, Gareth. How's it going?
It goes very well. Yeah. How have you been doing?
Doing well. Obviously, hunkered down because of COVID, but I've been itching to have a Dexter conversation with fellow fans for quite some time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, excellent. Has lockdown been kind to you?
Yeah, it hasn't. It's been. My social life has taken a bit of a hit, as I'm sure it has for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, it's been having a lot of nice gaming time, I suppose, is the way I'll choose to look at it.
Also with us is our good friend, feedbacker extraordinaire, and even occasional host of Dissecting Dexter. It's Travis Sheflin. Hi, Travis.
Gareth Watkins, I heard you was dead. Well, what year is it?
It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's like we've slipped back through time about 8 years.
We're back, baby. Dexter's back. Clyde Phillips is back. Gareth is back. The waffling is back. Everything old is new again.
Well, I tried to keep the waffling to a minimum just then, just for everybody's benefit. But I can't promise there will be no waffling when season 9 comes around.
What a professional you are, man. You know, you just did that little intro. Nick, right?
Yes.
All I see is an N on my screen now, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't want to call him Nick. His name's Nate or something. Nick and I sat here quietly, and Gareth I don't think he has a script. Well, that was a beautiful intro. That was one take. He didn't goof up at all. What a consummate host.
I'm going to be honest. I've been hosting a podcast for going on 12 years now, and I could not have done that on one take as nicely as Gareth has. So. Yeah. Very well done.
You're very kind, and not a note in sight, he says, as his nose gets a bit longer. So we're here, and probably wouldn't have been had it not been for the exciting news in the autumn about the Dexter revival, which I think, Travis, you may have been the one to break it to me, or was it? It may have even been you on Twitter, Nick.
I thought I was being punked when that first happened because my phone started blowing up. You know, people in our own community, you know, I had this reputation for being the Dexter nerd in my community. So everybody started pinging me immediately. I was at work and I was like, there's no way this is happening. No way. And then I saw the tweet from Showtime and I just like lost my mind.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You guys probably the same as me. For years and years, there would be fake outs. Stupid people make little Photoshop posters. And if I'm being completely honest, they wouldn't even be that good. But people who are gullible or they just want to believe, like the X-Files, I'm on like the Dexter subreddit and they would, season 9's coming. And it'd be like a crappy Photoshop of like previous like promotional art. But Dexter's got blood splashed and Hannah's there. And, season 9 coming. And I'm like, oh, shut up. This would. all these places would be reporting this if this is true, but sure, geekcentral.net got the exclusive scoop on this. Sure. There'd be a lot of stuff like that. And so when I saw the news, I messaged Gareth, because it's pretty official, and I guess it's still going on. It's
one of the first things I did after the initial shock had kind of set in or worn off, and I was kind of like starting to form thoughts. I was like, I've got to tweet at Gareth and see if he's planning on bringing the podcast back, which I did. So
it was one of my first thoughts as well. I thought, oh shit, I've got to do a podcast each week again. Because it's
world.
Quite intense when you're in the middle of a season. It's and you're working full time as well. I have to admit it, and I think I said on the show when we got to the end, I was pretty burnt out. So
nothing like a 7-year hiatus to really breathe life back into it.
Yeah, I have no excuse for my podcasting batteries not to have recharged. No excuse at all. So, but I think I can do it. So
we know you can, man. I mean,
we have total faith.
I've
got it in
10 episodes? It's not even the full.
It's
12,
10
right?
episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cable TV's done funny things over the last 10 years, right? Where broadcast TV was always 24 episodes a season or something similar. Cable, Sopranos comes around, goes 12, motherfucker. Can we curse on this? Can I say motherfucker?
Go for it.
12, motherfucker. I'm with the Sopranos. We're prestige TV. So then 12 became the cable standard. Breaking Bad, which is a different cable network, but they did like 13, and then slowly it became 10, and then Netflix streaming and all that stuff came out, and then 10 is the standard. Now 8 for some things, right? Like Stranger Things is like 8 episodes.
I'm not really sure how they necessarily determine what the run is going to be for a particular show. Sometimes I wonder if it specifically has to do with like the story they're trying to tell. And like you said, Travis, Clyde Phillips is back, and it makes me wonder if he's coming back with a very specific story, and he's like, I only need 10 episodes. 10 episodes is all I need to tell the story that I want to tell, and that's what they greenlit him for. I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like Clyde Phillips has enough sway with Showtime, given his track record, that he could probably do whatever he wants if he says he'll come back and do it. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, all killer and no filler, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a rewatch myself, and in fact, my fiance is watching. She jumped on with me, I think, after season 3, because she had never seen past season 3. So she jumped in with me on season 4, and she's watching. Yeah, and we're about halfway through season 7 right now.
Right.
And one thing I've noticed quite a bit more of now that it's been a while since I've rewatched it, and she's noticing now because she's watching it for the first time, is there's definitely quite a bit of filler. Or
definitely
there's some episodes in particular that's just like, this didn't really need to exist. And I feel like Clyde Phillips probably is like, I want to make a season that's tight, that doesn't have any of that filler.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows that are guilty of having filler. I think what immediately spring to mind are the Netflix Marvel shows like Daredevil and Luke Cage, that at their core have a good story and some good characters, but the season gets padded out, and I suspect it's probably Netflix that order 12 episodes, and the writers think, bloody hell, we've only got about 7 or 8
another
episodes
show,
of good story here.
Yeah, another show that fluctuates, I've noticed a lot, is The Walking Dead, which, is still going, but strangely enough, like sometimes their seasons are like, 20-something episodes, sometimes they're like 18, and those at the same time, it's Walking Dead, so there's plenty of filler episodes in there. So who knows how these decisions are made, but I did think it was interesting that Dexter came back with 10 instead of the usual 12, but
yeah,
I guess that'll make it interesting.
Yeah, I think, as you say, Clyde Phillips has had many years to think about what he might have done with the series. Obviously, he left at the end of season 4, so he left on a high.
Very high.
Yeah, and he had his own ideas about how the show would have ended. And probably during that time, he at the point that he left, he may well have had some ideas ruminating in his head about where the show might have gone had he stayed on.
Yeah.
and then all these years since to refine those and use that season 8 finale as a jumping point. So I feel quietly confident that this notion of all killer and no filler. I feel quietly confident in that's going to be the case, and that perhaps he's maybe done a deal with Showtime and so look, we want to do 10 episodes.
Yeah. One thing because he has, obviously when this news broke, it was announced very much as this is a one-off revival, one season reboot. And then of course Travis mentioned the rumors that are circulating that there might be additional seasons after this, but I'm wondering how possible is it that there's additional seasons, considering multiple times Clyde Phillips in interviews has said this is meant to be a standalone season that offers, like, it's a second chance at doing a proper ending, because we all know how people feel about the ending of the show as it exists now. So it seems to me like he would only come back if he had the opportunity to basically give it a better ending.
Yeah. Well, I think even Michael C. Hall himself has spoken ironically about how the show ended. Yeah. And it's kind of surprising that he allowed that to happen when he was a producer on the show in those later seasons, and will have had probably immense power and influence on the story, I would think, if he, to veto something if he didn't like it. But he's been quoted. I saw a quote today where he said essentially he put his sister in the ocean. What the hell was that? So I think he's looking back and thinking maybe that wasn't the best way for the show to end.
I know there was a conversation. I don't remember where it was, but it was kind of implied that Showtime basically said no matter how they end it, they can't kill him. They have to leave it open so they can bring him back. And beyond that, I don't know how much creative control was given to Michael C. Hall or what, or maybe he was just burnt out by the end. It was just kind of like, it's got to end. Y'all just do whatever you want. I don't know.
Well, Clyde Phillips' idea for how the show would have ended, I think, would have been quite terminal. His notion was that the final scene would be Dexter waking up after whatever had just transpired, and we think, oh, it was just a dream, and then the camera the picture widens so that we see he's actually strapped down on the execution table, about to be administered the injection, and he looks around and he sees visions of all the people he's killed, particularly the big bads, and Phillips had in mind that Rita would be there, Dokes and some of the others that he might not have killed himself but was arguably responsible for.
Right.
And then it would cut.
I think that would have been
being that he was executed at the end, and that was always how I thought the show would end. It would end with him being executed and winking at the camera at the end, giving us a little twinkle.
And part of me was like, well, now's their chance to maybe kind of circle back around and do that, but now there's already talk of there being additional seasons, so it's like, well, maybe that isn't the new ending he had in mind for this new season, but who knows? But I think that would have been a very poignant way to end the original show.
I would have liked that,
especially if they pulled some big cameos off, or it's like bring back some big names for that scene would have been really cool.
Yeah, just for faces, and it would have given us that little touch of nostalgia at the end as a send off. That would have been quite poignant, perhaps, as well, to see if he locked eyes with Rita. That would have, I don't think there'd have been a dry eye in the house, would there?
No, that would have been nice.
I got to chime in here. See, I've always been wild. I remember back in season 1, the show was funny. You remember, Gareth, you're in the midst of the salad days of the show. The show can be very funny, right?
Oh, well, I was lolling this afternoon. I think I texted you, didn't I? It was the famous "Pardon my tits" moment.
Yeah.
And then Deb immediately pushes past her and goes into the bedroom where Dexter's surrounded by 101 candles, and she says, "Who's the skank?"
Were you trying to set her on fire or fuck her?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. So the show used to be funny, right? It used to be very dark comedic, and I might do this a couple times, so forgive me. But I have my fanboyum has definitely shifted from Dexter to Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad's not new to me, but that's like, for me, that's like the gold standard of like cable drama.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I don't disagree with you. That show is fantastic. I mean, Dexter's always been my favorite just from like a conceptual standpoint, but Breaking Bad was pretty much executed amazingly from start to finish, which
it's perfect.
You know,
but this isn't a Breaking Bad podcast. I only bring that up because Breaking Bad, like Dexter, was very, very funny in the beginning. And I say this because to me, in my perfect vision of how the series would have gone, I never needed Dexter to get caught. I never needed Deborah to find out for my enjoyment, because that I like the sardonic, dark humor of the show. I don't know, Dexter getting caught, that kind of ruins that. Like the first episode, the first season, really with its Latin music, it's fun. Ooh, what Dexter's doing is fun. It's funny. Whoops, Reed almost caught me. but she's stupid, and then with the show, when it gets really down into the drama part, then you suddenly start to like all these other characters. And when you say that was likely Clyde Phillips's original intent was to end it that way, like, to me, I'd be a little disappointed. I always pictured it's almost shameful to say, so don't tell anybody. This just stays between us three, okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure.
The idea, the kernel of the idea of what happened, how the show ended, isn't terrible to me. Dexter in exile isn't terrible to me, but him with the glued on beard across the country, his son with some stranger who's a murderer in South America, that's terrible to me. But the idea of Dexter doing some sort of self-punishment for his deeds, that's fine. I always pictured something, this is stupid, so that's why I'm not a writer for cable, but like even something like Dexter ended up in a wheelchair or something, where like he still has the need to kill, but he physically can't do it anymore. So it's a little bittersweet, right? Like, okay, well, maybe Dexter is going to be off the hook, but he's also kind of a tortured soul now. Like, I can't physically kill anybody anymore. I don't know. I think maybe that's a little cliche too. But
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Travis. I wouldn't say I'm a defender of season 8 by any stretch of the imagination, but there were elements of that ending that I did not hate as well. And it's probably very much in line with kind of what you said. I felt like the whole Hannah taking his son and going to Argentina was a bit of a stretch, especially as a character who they've spent seasons trying to convince us that he cares about his son. It seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. And then
at
also,
the same
don't
time,
forget, I'm sorry, I got to cut in real quick. Hold your thought. Don't forget, Dexter drove into a hurricane and survived. He didn't fake driving into a hurricane, right? Like, the idea is he faked his death, but we watched him literally drive into a hurricane. How the hell did he survive that?
Yeah.
Go on.
Did he have another boat wait?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope they don't ever explain that, because I don't need them to explain.
There's no explanation. They need to just ignore it. Just move on.
I mean,
if you had
the beauty of this whole thing is that they are planning to ignore so much of it.
Yeah.
Because they're treating it as in real time. It's it's been 7 years in the show, in the new season. There's a lot of little details like that that they don't feel the need to really address. And I feel like the audience probably just kind of wants to forget season 8 by and large anyways. So as long as they don't completely rewrite things and pretend like they didn't happen or whatever, which they've said they have no intention of doing, then I feel like people can largely just kind of ignore season 8 for the most part.
Well, for me, I'm totally okay with the sin of omission, right? Like, you don't have to rewrite it, but just don't bring it up. I don't know. I guess we're kind of jumping right in. I don't know if Gareth had a plan, but I'll tell you something that I would want for the new season. And this is probably just me and about 3 other dudes or ladies listening to this. Man, I could go the whole season without you even mentioning Hannah or Harrison. This could just be like a reboot, what you call a soft reboot. I don't need to see or even hear about those 2 characters. This could all be Dexter's new adventures in Lumberland or wherever he is, right?
I tend to agree. Like, I feel like, honestly, for the last 3 seasons of that show, they didn't know what to do with Harrison. So giving them a way to write that character out, the best thing Hannah could have done as her legacy is take Harrison out of the equation, which I think they have. And I think it's going to be hard for them to kind of circle back around and address that. But I could also totally see them doing it, because it is a huge, like, elephant in the room. Like, if we make it through this new season and there's no mention of Harrison, or if he doesn't surprise like show up as like a young, at this point he would be what, like
he'd be like 12 or 13, 14.
Yeah, like if they don't somehow bring him back into the thing is, if they bring him back into the fold, I feel like it's impossible to do that without bringing Hannah back into the fold. And Hannah is not a character. Hannah is not a character that was created by Clyde Phillips. I kind of feel like he doesn't want anything to do with that. So
yeah,
I don't know.
They could just do like the Scooby Doo, just like Scrappy Doo, he's not around anymore. Hannah. Did you you got Simpsons? Hannah died on the way back to her home planet. Sorry, that's a Poochie reference. I don't know if the Simpsons is big over with you, Gareth, but Poochie's a big Simpsons joke. What was I going to say? Go on. I had a thought, but I don't want to hold on to it. Go on.
Yeah, so
let's see if Gareth wants to get this back on track.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a structure for the conversation. I have no problem with us just sort of rambling and sort of going through our thoughts about the new season. And I did plan on asking you guys how your feelings have sort of fermented over the years following season 8. So we're kind of going through that now, aren't we? Yeah. I had accepted. I had reached a point of acceptance that season 8 was a bit of an anticlimax, but like you guys, I feel that it wasn't the complete disaster that some would have you believe. I thought it was quite fine that Dexter self-imposed his self-imposed exile, because if we'd learned anything from, or if he'd seen anything from the time we spent with him, was that people who get close to him often end up being hurt or worse. And I think he probably feared that for Harrison. If he stuck around, that he would lose, and Harrison's his own flesh and blood, right. And also a tie back to his his love of Rita. So for that reason, I would be surprised and a bit disappointed if he wasn't at least mentioned in the new season. That maybe, I don't know, maybe he's found some way to reach out to Hannah. I got the sense that she didn't have any way of getting in touch with him, and he knew she'd gone to Argentina, but that was it. So I don't know whether that would have been possible, or whether he thought it best simply just to sort of cut the cord.
Right.
But I would be surprised if he's not mentioned at some point, because like you say, it would be the elephant in the room otherwise. He was his son.
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that maybe Dexter is somehow keeping tabs on him without actually reaching out to him and letting him know that he's alive. Because the assumption is that Dexter is dead and he's very much moved on. I wouldn't be surprised at all if in this new season he's going by a completely new name. I can't imagine what that would be, but the implication is that
it will be laced with references to maybe one of his early kills, or it'll have some meaning to us, won't it?
It's gonna be like Chainsawman or something like that. That'll be his name.
Oh my god.
That's a cool. Yeah, hey, Chain. What up?
He's just going by Little Chino.
Yeah, there we go, Big Chino. He's Big Chino now. I'm the captain now.
Yeah, so I would expect Harrison. I would be surprised if Harrison wasn't mentioned. I wouldn't expect us to see him, because it would still make sense that Dexter would not want to risk bringing any kind of danger his way simply through how he is and what he has to do.
Yeah, he'll be mentioned, but I mean, realistically, in air quotes, like, in what mechanism would bring Harrison back to the States? Like, I found you. I know the police couldn't find you, but I did. Right. Like, I feel like there'd have to be some. Is this our new term for bad writing? There'd have to be some season 8 level writing for Harrison to be like, oh, I saw a photo of you online. You were in the background of the opening of the new strip mall, and something. So I came.
Yeah.
It'd have to be something wacky.
I tend to think, because Clyde Phillips, as I understand it, Clyde Phillips, he has a writing room obviously, but the the underpinnings of the new season, like the major plot points that get you from point A to point B in this new season were all dreamed up by Clyde Phillips. And
yeah, that's what I understand.
Yeah, and his track record, I mean, he very much kind of had the same role in the first 4 seasons, and I think he demonstrated that. Even like in that, if you look at just that first 4 season block, even at its quote unquote low point, which I guess a lot of people would agree is season 3, I think a lot of the things they did even in that weakest season were quite smart and really well executed. And there is a noticeable difference. There's a noticeable shift in writing style and the amount of disbelief that they expect the audience to suspend in season 1 through 4 versus seasons 6 through 8, or 5 through 8.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, because he makes a lot of, if you look at the back half of that show, he makes a lot of decisions that the Dexter from the first half of the show would never have made. And I feel like I'm hoping that this is kind of, with Clyde Phillips back on board, and Michael C. Hall he's said multiple times, like, a lot of the reason why he agreed to come back was because the story this time, he said he's been pitched on it several times, and this story from Clyde Phillips won him over. So I'm hoping this is kind of a return to just that tighter writing style of the first 4 seasons. Which I think a lot of people are probably
yeah. We're all hoping, but I can't let this podcast go by without being cynical. I'll remind you, even I love that first 4 seasons. It's not perfect. There's some
absolutely
under not. Clyde Phillips's watchful eye. There was some wacky Jackie stuff going on.
Sure. And,
like season 4, I remember Dexter having 2 Thanksgivings. What the hell are you thinking? Remember when he hid inside of a casket and then somehow put a tarp? I mean, I don't know. This is like a set design problem, but he hid inside of a casket to hide from Trinity, and somehow while he was inside the casket, put a tarp on top of himself from inside the casket. Do you remember this?
Vaguely. I mean, I know what.
I remember him hiding in the coffin.
I noticed.
He pops out of the casket just in time for Deb to open the garage and come in, and he's whatever. There's always needed to be a certain amount of disbelief suspended. I mean, and also, and this is one thing I've kind of tried to come to grips with, is for the show to work, for the audience to get on board with what the main character is doing, there has to be a certain level of a certain lack of realism. I feel like if this was like ultra realistic, it would start to feel too gross. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be, as an audience member, as someone who, as someone who doesn't wholly approve of the things this character is doing, if it felt too real, I feel like people would have had a hard time connecting with the characters. That's why I feel like so much of the writing in the show is kind loosey-goosey with how he gets away with things. Yeah, and they keep it lighthearted, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say. The lighthearted nature. I think, going back to what Travis was saying about the larger amount of humour in those early seasons, particularly season 1, that was perhaps necessary for what you're saying, Nick, to attach us to this character who's a murderer. But it's kind of softened that, well, he only kills murderers, and but he's got a sense of humour, and he's just a lost soul trying to fit in, and he's got a tragic past.
Right.
And it's just one of those things to, like you say, if it was too gritty and too dark, maybe we wouldn't have latched onto him the same.
Which is kind of the territory they start to get into in like the last 2 seasons of the show. That last season is, I think, so hard for some people to get into or to connect to, because it feels, maybe more so than any other season, like depressing and dark and don't get me wrong, I like it when the show takes the occasional turn for like dark and serious, but it almost always bounces back and and then becomes something more approachable. But that last season is so just, I don't know how to describe it. There's not a ton of comedy. I don't know.
Well, that
last season is just kind of rough.
Well, harken back to what we had said previously about all killer, no filler. Season 8 has a lot of attempted comedy. The last few seasons do, because probably a big problem with the final season. Oh, and I hate to say it, it hurts my soul to say it, but like any character that's not Dexter or Deb was wasting our goddamn time. Masuka's got a daughter. Who cares? Batista is now the owner of a bar. What? You know?
Yeah.
And maybe in this new season, I like The Simpsons. I love the old shit. I still want to see Masuka. I still want to see Angel. I want to see LaGuerta somehow. But I'm thinking about the past, how they used to be. Masuka was just a weird, unfunny pervert by the end. Batista, bless his heart, he had nothing to do, right? He was a bar owner, and then he came back like, well, I'm the captain or the lieutenant now somehow. I don't even know if they're going to come back, and if they do, are we going to spend time caring about them again? Or maybe I'd rather see Angel again than them try to get me attached to some new buddy of Dexter's.
So you are onto something, and I've heard people say the same thing about the side characters feeling like a waste of time, and I think it's more so in like again kind of the later half of the show where the side characters, basically if they're doing anything that is not somehow directly related to Dexter and what's going on with him, it is a complete waste of time. I don't necessarily need them to grow as characters. I like Batista a lot, and I liked seeing just the little tidbits here and there of him trying to rise through the ranks of the police force, and his relationship with Quinn was kind of nice for a while. But like anything beyond that, where it's just like now they have their own standalone side story that we're going to spend scenes and scenes on, like that, it becomes a bit of a waste. But this new season, I think they've positioned themselves to do something very exciting, which is that they've kind of, as much as I would like to know, what's going on with Batista and Quinn and whatnot, like they have the unique opportunity to avoid that and not worry about the filler and getting bogged down with those unimportant side stories, and fill the scene around Dexter with new faces, and hopefully make those new faces maybe more interesting and more directly related to what's going on in his story.
Yeah, I think I remember feedback about this point during season 8, and maybe it came from you, Travis. Just that exact point that anything the side characters, the supporting cast were the filler, and their storylines, like Masuka with his daughter and Batista with the bar, there were storylines that weren't related to what Dexter was doing, Dexter or Deb, and they were just inconsequential as a result. Now I'm halfway through season 2 at the moment, and everybody is involved in something connected to Dexter. Obviously season 2 is very much dominated by the Bay Harbor Butcher. So when Batista's following up a lead, we know that it's potentially got some consequences for Dexter. Masuka and his algae covered rocks, that could,
it's the rocks, baby.
Dexter makes a quip that he could be brought down by Masuka, the office pervert. To be fair, everything's connected.
To be fair to these non-existent characters, I guess I want to say, and maybe this is a credit to Clyde Phillips's superior writing, the side characters weren't all filler always, right? Like thinking back to season 1, Batista had his own side story that was unrelated to Ice Truck Killer Dexter. Remember him and his wife, him trying to be an honest cop with Dokes, right? Like, oh, do I rat on my buddy Dokes or not? Oh, I want to get back with my wife, but she doesn't want to, right? LaGuerta had her own little, they don't go far with it, but LaGuerta had her own little side thing with, oh, maybe she wants kids, she wants to be settled down or something, right? When she's with the little boy. You just saw this recently, right, Gareth?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's unrelated to Dexter, but at least back then the show was, although it's called Dexter, I'd be more willing to call that show an ensemble show, right? Because all these characters had things going on that I like, oh wow, I hope LaGuerta, I know she's kind of a bitch to Deb, but she's gonna be all right, that's what I thought. But it becomes laughable eventually. Right. I'm in a minority in that I think season 3 is the second best season. Don't at me.
I like season 3 a lot.
Don't at me. But season 3 has like, oh well Batista gets with that vice cop or whatever, and I like that was honestly maybe the last side story, at least for Batista, that I cared about. Oh, I want Batista to find love. You know, season 1 he got fucked up, or season 1 he couldn't reconcile with his wife. Season 2 he fucked around with Lila. That was a bad idea. And then season 3, oh, he's got something good. But then of course season 4, it's like, oh, we broke off screen. Don't worry about it. I think the exact thing he says is we wanted different things. You know, I was like, what? And you know, then that's when LaGuerta and Batista got together, and it kind of made it was like non-drama. You know, it was like, oh no, we love each other, but the office rules say we can't. You know, it's like, oh, okay, right. Is this the drama I'm supposed to care about?
So one thing to point out, I think, about why maybe some of those earlier side stories I think worked better than the later ones, is that a lot of what was happening, even if it seemed indirectly, or even if it seemed like it had nothing to do with Dexter directly, a lot of what was happening was being used to kind of, because a lot of the appeal of the show, especially in the earlier seasons, is like Dexter kind of learning how to be a human being from seeing the people around him deal with their own shit.
Yeah.
So a lot of what was happening with Angel and LaGuerta and, you know, all that was usually being tied direct to Dexter, because he was kind of watching this as an outsider and trying to figure it all out, which was nice. And then as they started to get away from that, I think as the show went on, it just became their side story. And Dexter was like, anytime they tried to like bring Dexter into the fold in one of those stories, he was just like, oh God, I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah, remember when he was like the witness for LaGuerta and this is 2 seasons out for you, Gareth, on your rewatch, so forgive the spoilers. But yeah, remember like, Dexter, you need to come in quick, and he rushes over. Hey, I need you to sign this paper that says that we're married now, or something. Like, what?
Oh yeah.
You know,
and he was like, just like, why me?
Yeah, it's like almost comical. Like this whole show was going, a whole different office romance show was going on behind Dexter's back, and he had no idea. And they just it's like they brought him in as a special guest star. Like, whoa.
It was almost a metaphor for the whole show.
Yeah.
For like
what? Oh yeah, you guys are dating?
But you know what? Like, one of the reasons why I think Angel in particular works better than almost every other side character in the show, is because Dexter always kind of unofficially saw him as they were friends. Like, he liked Angel even if he didn't really understand what it meant to be a person who has friends. He was like, I like Angel. And every time you watch Dexter kind of like in I think it's in season 4 when Batista gets shot, and then Angel and Dexter suddenly feels this like, is that season 4 when Batista gets shot?
Batista gets stabbed in season 1.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I struck killer stabs.
And then in season 2, he has the line when Lila, this is coming up soon for you, Gareth. When Lila accuses him of raping her.
Right.
Dexter says something like, man, if I could be any real person in the world, it would be you. He says it out loud. It's not like an inner thing. He tells Angel, like, I wish I could be like you if I could be any.
That is one of my favorite moments of humanity in Dexter in the entire show, when he suddenly just feels compelled to tell Angel that he like kind of looks up to him.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that was a great moment. And then just so many of the moments, I think they kind of forget, like, that's why those things were important in the first half of the show, and they get away from that a little too much in the second half.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, this new season has an opportunity to introduce new characters, make us care about those characters, and hopefully make them more directly important to the story more directly, especially since they're only trying to do it in 10 episodes. So.
Yeah, they're not going to have that much time to explore the new characters that much, perhaps to the extent that we care about them. Not everybody. We're getting a little bit of information coming through about some of the actors that have been cast already. Not many names jumping out as anyone I know. I don't know if you've had a look at any of the casting news. There's one that jumps out as potentially the big bad this season. How rude.
Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown, yeah, from Shawshank Redemption. And
I don't know if you all saw
SpongeBob is what I know him from.
Shawshank Redemption and SpongeBob, yes.
Yes.
Also, he is kind of, I wouldn't use the word prolific, but he shows up a lot in video games as voice acting and
Detroit. I know you were probably big on that. Yeah.
Detroit, right. And And I think it's a great choice. I don't know if y'all saw who some of the runner-ups, the people Showtime was also considering casting in that role prior to them landing Clancy Brown.
I saw one name. Yeah.
John Cusack. Gareth and I talked about when John Cusack was the rumor.
John Cusack was the original rumor, and then at one point I think they had actually gone to Tim Robbins, and he turned it down.
How weird, because I definitely see John Cusack and Tim Robbins. I can see that. But Clancy Brown, that dude seems like he's 8 feet tall and full of muscle. Like he doesn't seem like that same kind. It's interesting that they went that way.
It does seem like there's gonna maybe a change in like how they're gonna personify that character, like how they're gonna how he's gonna be directed and whatnot, or portrayed. Because like you said, Clancy Brown's very different than both of those other people. I like Clancy Brown. I think he's a great choice. But I think one of those casting rumors that seems so like kind of out of left field, and I think those are always the most exciting ones. I know. I mean, like the common example is always like, just remember how you felt the first time you found out that Heath Ledger was going to play the Joker, and then all of a sudden it was like, what the fuck? Like,
I remember where I was when I'm going to sidetrack very briefly. I was in the computer lab at my college. I had just, I was a freshman or something in college. And I remember seeing that first Heath Ledger image, and I was like, what a fucking joke, in the worst way. This is what are they thinking? And, boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, it doesn't always obviously guarantee a hit or a winner, but if you want to talk Dexter examples, like I was a little unsure about John Lithgow when he was announced, because I knew John Lithgow from Third Rock from the Sun. And it seems so like, how does he play a bad guy? And then one episode in, I was like, whoa. And I was kind of hoping maybe John Cusack could have been like that. Clancy Brown has played villains before, quite often actually, and he does it well. But I feel like I know a little bit more of what to expect now going into this, which is in some senses is kind of a disappointment. But at the same time, I'm excited to see what he does with it.
I mean, it's not casting against type, is it? And I think that would have been more exciting. Like John Cusack would have been cast against type, wouldn't it? He would have been more interesting. And Tim Robbins as well. I mean, he's a taller guy than John Cusack, but not. Although if you've
watched Castle Rock, the second season of Castle Rock, he was in that show, and he wasn't exactly a villain, but he was a very imposing character and a very intimidating character, which I wasn't really expecting. So if anyone would be interested to see what he could have brought to the table as a Dexter villain, I would recommend the second season of Castle Rock, which is also just a great season of television. But I don't know, Clancy Brown, we'll see.
Yeah, so he's playing a character who's a former truck driver who it sounds like now is the unofficial mayor of a small town called Iron Lake. So it's small town America, small community. I don't know whether it's the small town in which Dexter now resides, or whether it's just a town that he arrives at for some reason.
So real quick, and this might be a great time to, because I think the biggest shock of this whole announcement of this new season was the shift in scenery, and how it now takes place in like upstate New York, and it's filming in Massachusetts. And so I follow a couple of the directors on Twitter, and also Scott Reynolds is back to tweeting about Dexter a lot, because he's obviously heavily involved. So he's tweeting like set photos a lot.
Wasn't Scott Reynolds the fake Gareth? Wasn't he the guy who tried to start the Dexter podcast when Gareth already had a podcast?
Yes. He did. I had to get my lawyer to send him a letter.
Cease and desist.
Change the name. Yeah,
I know. What a.
Yeah, I had to make a stand.
What's his name? Scott Derrick?
Scott Reynolds.
Scott Reynolds, more like Scott Renat. Not on. I'll think of a better one, and I'll come back to you on that.
We'll circle back around to that for sure.
Yeah, I can edit that bit out, Travis. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you. Would you please? Would you just edit this whole thing?
Scott was obviously very heavily
not
involved
Reynolds,
in the latter. He was very heavily involved in the writing stuff, wasn't he, in the latter few seasons? Although he I've noticed his name popping up as a staff writer in season 2. So he's been with the show a long time.
I think he's always been part of the writing room for the show, but he became, I think he was like the second in line after Scott Buck, who, as far as I know, I think a lot of people attribute like kind of the downfall of the show to Scott Buck. Whether that's true, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just saying that's kind of what a lot of people said. And as far as I can tell, Scott Buck doesn't have any involvement in this new season. But Scott Reynolds, I think, was always his second lead writer on the show in the second half of the show, and he's back now. But he's been tweeting a lot of photos from the set. Nothing like no photos of like Michael C. Hall or any of the actors, but like you get a sense for like what kind of scenery they're filming in. They're doing a lot of like stuff in the woods, and there's snow on the ground, and it's a completely different vibe.
Now let me ask you, because you maybe are more privy to information than I am. When we last left Dexter in season 8, I don't know if it was ever explicitly stated, but I think it was implicitly accepted by everybody. He was in Oregon or Washington, right? The show
I think it actually says. I think it actually says Oregon during that last scene where you see the lumber yard.
Welcome to Chainsaw, Oregon, or something, right?
Something like that.
And so, and then the news. You're absolutely right. I have heard the same thing. It's filming in Boston or New England area.
In and around Boston.
He? I kind of just assumed. I thought it was dumb, but I kind of assumed like it still takes place in Oregon, but they're just filming over there for they film all over the world for tax reasons or whatever. Yeah. Do you think, do we know that it does take place on the East Coast again?
It takes place in upstate New York.
Okay, that's not just the filming location for Showtime to be cheap. Okay.
Yeah, it is filming in Massachusetts, but the fictional town of Iron Lake is supposed to be upstate New York.
Oh, that's weird. I mean, they'll write it off like Dexter had to move, to evade the FBI, to evade Lundy Jr.
Probably another thing they're not even going to bother. It's like Clyde Phillips like, I don't want to deal with the lumberjack shit, so we're just putting him somewhere else. I mean, a lot can happen to anybody in 8 years. So
it's a long time, isn't it?
He could have been a lumberjack for 2 years and then decided, nah, fuck this. Back to the East Coast.
Yeah, I mean, his dark passenger won't have gone away just because he's started life as a lumberjack. So in anonymity. But what Clive Phillips has said is that Dexter's tried to relocate to a place where there are fewer people, less temptation, but people who need to die keep crossing his path. ...
So a couple things I want to point out there. One, you mentioned the thing about his dark passenger, which, to be honest, the one thing I always, especially the second half of the season, they leaned really hard into that, and I always thought it was kind of awkward. But I'll never forget, like the last episode or the second to last, or right before Deb gets shot. Sorry, are we okay to spoil what happens?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, anyone listening to this, I can't imagine hasn't already seen all 8 seasons.
So like right before Deb gets shot, and then he leaves to go, I guess, catch Hannah before she leaves the country. I don't remember what happened, but he says something about, like, I think his dark passenger, he doesn't feel it anymore, like it's gone. Like he was able to walk away from the kill table. He had what's his face on the table. Yeah, he had Saxon on the table, and he just like, I don't need to do this anymore. And he like left, and that was supposed to be I think that was supposed to be a bigger moment than it ended up landing.
Yeah.
But I think the implication, and this is another thing that's not confirmed, but there's been some hearsay or some things that were dropped in like interviews that make it sound like this, is that this new season, I think the implication is that he hasn't killed anybody in that time span, and that maybe what this season is, it sounds like this is going to be his first time killing in like 8 years. Like he just suddenly something happens and he feels the need to kill again or whatever. But I think a couple things: the implication of the new location, the time jump, and maybe the idea that he's very inexperienced now because it's been so long, and then he's just kind of
rusty,
not as honed as he used to be. Could be really exciting from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, it could be. I'll use those air quotes again about realistically. Like realistically. Where would Dexter find people to kill without the police department's resources like he did throughout the series, right? I mean, that was sort of caked into the premise. Like he works for the cops, and that helps fuel his hobby.
I have a possible answer to that.
Well, yeah. Well, tell me, is there a way, like, I'm assuming Dexter's like Superman. Well, almost. And in terms of like Superman, Superman doesn't kill. And Dexter, if he can help it, doesn't kill innocent people.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, how Dexter being, I'll just say lumberjack, if that's what he's still doing. Like, how often is he going to find murderers? I mean, you'll find a bunch of scumbags, but how are you going to find murderers amongst, and find the proof that he used to have?
So I don't know if Gareth has this in his notes, but one of the other casting characters that they've cast is it's a woman. I can't remember her name, but she is like
Jamie Chung.
No, Jamie Chung is one of them. She's supposed to be apparently a true crime podcaster.
Yes,
that's an interesting idea.
Which could be cool.
If she's doing a podcast on the Bay Harbor Butcher.
And maybe maybe she kind of like starts to unravel and kind of bring him back into the fray or something. I don't know. But there's also the police chief and her daughter, I think, in the town have been cast as like major characters. And I'm wondering if maybe he has some kind of relationship, not necessarily romantic, but just like some kind of, maybe he knows this person and that's kind of his in as far as getting information. But
I hope they don't have sex.
He could borrow her laptop, couldn't he? But maybe if he's been working really hard to follow all Lila's advice and try to quell his urges. So maybe if he hasn't killed all this time, it would take something pretty bad to bring him back and make him want to kill again.
I always think about
to the kid.
Yeah, maybe. And one of my favorite scenes of the whole show, as it exists now, is the first episode of season 5, and is the episode where he loses his shit on the guy in the bathroom.
Yeah, I love that bit.
I always love that scene.
Yeah.
And I'm picturing this new season, like maybe he's been doing so well as to avoiding killing, and it's just starting to creep back in, like the desire to want to do it. And he's maybe trying to resist, and then I can see if there's like some pivotal moment where he has an opportunity and he sees it and he's like, I shouldn't do this, I don't want to do this, but I feel like I've got to. And there's like some kind of moment similar to that scene from season 5 that kind of just makes him unravel and become what he used to be. Could be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, if he's gone so many years without, I mean, the code was there to channel his need to kill in a quote unquote, air quotes again, constructive way, by only not killing innocents, not killing random people, but killing people who actually deserve it, so that some, again, air quotes, good comes out of of what he's doing. Now, if he's been living in the forest for a few years with a bunch of other lumberjacks, like you say, how many murderers are knocking around there, killing people? Probably not many. So it's possible he's been going all these years and not killed anybody. But what's that? How much is he jonesing for a fix at that point? After so many years, after a few months, that might be easier to handle. But after a few years.
I'm thinking like just speculation is based on what we know about the season so far, because Clancy Brown being cast as a kind of the unofficial mayor of this small town, and we know from Showtime and everybody kind of implying that he is the quote unquote big bad of the season. I can't help but feel like Dexter is going to like accidentally stumble across some kind of, I don't want to say conspiracy, but some devious shit going on that the rest of the town is kind of blind to, because by calling him like the unofficial mayor, it kind of implies that everybody likes him and looks up to him, but he's really has like a dark side.
Yeah.
So I could see him just stumbling into like, oh, this guy is actually a bad dude, but nobody in town really knows it or acknowledges it because they don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
And then him taking it upon himself to rectify the situation.
Yeah.
Well, how do we feel about the whole concept of big bads? I got to admit, when I heard about the casting, I was a little nervous because that seems a little too old Dexter. Like, that was kind of many people's complaints, not least of which mine, is like the formulaicness of the season. Every season, some new guest star shows up for 10 out of 12 episodes, and then they die. And it's always they're the big bad, right? And I'm like, is it this? I'm like, I'll say this will be the last time, I promise. Like, Breaking Bad never had big bads per se. Like, Gus became a rival to Walter eventually, but when Gus was introduced, he was like Walter's friend, and they spent like 2 seasons of them having a dynamic relationship before they ended up butting heads. He wasn't some here's the new big bad, he's gonna get killed, and so I worry about that. But I know that they're in a unique relationship where Dexter has got no buddies and he has no cast members from the whole show to be the quote unquote big bad anymore. So I understand that, but it just makes me nervous. Like, another season. I mean, I'm calling it right now, Mother's Day UK time. What's his face? Clancy Brown's, he's going to get killed somehow at some point.
Final episode.
I think Dexter in and of itself is especially this season in particular. To be honest, I think the whole big bad thing would have happened one way or the other. It's just kind of a thing for the show. And personally, I always get really excited about finding out who the villain is going to be, because I do think I do think in most cases Dexter's story is more interesting when he has a rival or a villain that he's trying to take down, but not necessarily always true. I think of season 7, and I might get a lot of hate mail for this. I'm not entirely sure, but season 7 for me is probably my second favorite season of the show. But I don't really think that's a show that has a big bad. Hannah kind of stepped up to be kind of like the main, I don't know what you want to call it, like
the main
roadblock for him.
Yeah,
the focal point. But I wouldn't call her a villain necessarily, and I wouldn't call her the big bad at all. And of course, season 2, there wasn't really a big bad because everyone was so focused on Dexter. But Dokes was kind of stepped up to be kind of his main opposition.
Dokes and Lundy. A big bad, I guess, if you take bad in the loosest sense of the word.
It's an antagonist, isn't it? In a storytelling sense, it's a hero your protagonist needs an antagonist. To have some sort of conflict for us to get invested in.
Yeah, so they haven't always like it seems really formulaic, and sometimes it certainly is. Like, season 4 is obviously an amazing season of television, but it is very formulaic in that it has a very easily identifiable big bad that he has to take down. But obviously it broke the mold in some really interesting ways, and I'm hoping they do that again here.
Well, they also had the privilege. Well, season 4 was early on. Season 4 was the most like season 1 in the broadest sense that like there was clearly like another serial killer for Dexter to fight.
Right.
It hadn't become formulaic then, but then, like season 5, Jordan Chase is the other serial killer. Season 6 is Doomsday. Season 7 was Isaac for a little bit, I mean, we'll just use the word serial killer, even though Isaac, if you get paid,
I think everybody assumed
not a serial killer.
Yeah, I think everybody assumed was Isaac was going to be the big bad in season 7, and I certainly did. But then he was gone after like 7 or 8 episodes or something. Which honestly I was kind of bummed about because I really liked Isaac as a character, and I wanted to see more of him.
Yeah, I like the actor.
Yeah, Ray Stevenson was great in that season. Yeah. But I also feel like because this is a revival, there's been such a big time jump. They're basically clean slate with a whole new set of characters. I kind of feel like they have to introduce some kind of villain to be an antagonist, otherwise what even drives the story at that point?
If they had thought ahead, which of course this is all if and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. If they would have thought ahead, this would have been the perfect opportunity for LaGuardia to be the returning big bad or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now of course this is Clyde Phillips. He's not in control of what I got my own thoughts about why Clyde Phillips left. I don't know how much we want to get into that, but there's so much stuff. It was clear when the writers were writing, at least the last half of the season, they didn't have any care about what came, and often they didn't really care about what came or what's going to happen, and they didn't care about what came before because there's so many opportunities. Like LaGuardia could have done this. Even to the fanboy me in 2007, when they announced season 2 of Dexter, I was like, this is the last season storyline. Why are you doing that?
Right. Yes.
That's the show writes itself. It ends with the manhunt, and because then you're really on the edge of your seat. Is he going to get caught or not?
Yeah, high stakes.
I mean, I have said that for so long, and I think it's largely because they felt they weren't sure how many seasons they were going to get, but they're like, we definitely want to do this story, but we don't know if we're going to get a season 3, so let's just do it now. And then they got 7 more seasons.
It's the shame, because even in 2007, I was like a 90% sure. I was like, nah, Dexter's not getting caught. I was like, there's gonna be more. The show's too big.
Right.
And so, if they would have thought ahead, it would have been great. Because now they have to introduce some new dude that I care about, and it'd be so much better. Hell, even if Deb was around, I'd hate to see it because I like when Deb and Dexter get along. It'd be better if Deb was the big bad. Like, I gotta find this asshole.
Yeah.
No one's taking down Dexter but me. Deb.
You know who? If we just want to get into speculation here about who they could potentially bring back from old school Dexter to serve as some kind of opposing force. I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but Quinn, because think about how Quinn was let off at the end of that show. He loved Deborah, and then Deb died, and then Dexter mysteriously disappears, and is assumed dead. And then who's to say that Quinn didn't become obsessed with what happened to his sister or with Dexter's sister, and maybe he developed his own theories about Dexter, because he always had suspicions about him too, about something was up, and he knew, especially at the end of season 5, that Dexter was into some shit, and he at the end of that season he got him off charges because of all that shit. So who's to say Quinn didn't put 2 and 2 together and decide he was going to find Dexter?
They could have done that, and they still might. I guess we technically don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn might, after the hurricane had died down, maybe they were wondering where Deb's body had gone, and they're reviewing CCTV, and they see Dexter walking out with it, and they're like,
"You got to know that happened. They've got to have somebody's got to check the cameras on that one."
That was one of the big holes, wasn't it, at the end of season 8? One of.
Honestly, I have a few season 8 opinions, and. Some of them may not be popular, but I honestly think of the season 8 as a whole, I think was kind of weak. I think it started strong and then just floundered and petered out, and it felt really unsatisfying. Yeah. But my favorite episode of that season is still the final episode. But the one thing I've never been able to shake is that why did he have to put her body in the ocean? Why didn't she just die in the bed there and he just walk away?
Because Scott Buck is a hack fraud. I'm saying it.
Yeah. There was no reason for him to do that. I think I don't feel like it would have gotten the rep that it did if he hadn't. We already got the moment of the poetic moment, right? Because 4 seasons ago, Deb had said something about, if I'm ever on my deathbed, I want you to take me off life support, right? She said that, and he was and he heard her say that. So fast forward 4 seasons, he does that, and then he's like, my life as I know it is over, and then walks away. It may not have been the most popular series finale, but I don't think there would have been as much vitriol or anger if he had just skipped the whole dumping her body in the ocean, because it served no purpose.
It doesn't make sense.
It was also comical that he wheels her out of the hospital. I know everything's going to shit, but who doesn't stop some normal dude from rolling a body out of the fucking hospital?
There'll have been CCTV all over the place.
Right.
Something would have caught it.
Right.
And she was a police officer. They would have wondered where she'd gone.
Exactly. My other 2 opinions, just real quick, about season 8. One, I'm never going to be able to shake the image. Isn't there doesn't he have sex with Hannah wearing nothing but his socks?
Yes.
Does anybody? Okay. Why? Why did that have to happen? I don't know why. I haven't been able to shake that image for 7 years. It was a weird decision.
It's gross. And I remember I left feedback on this. When he first has sex with Hannah, it's it's almost like a softcore porn. Because it's you just watch the whole thing and he's gone in 60 seconds. It's he mounts her and then you watch until he finishes, and it's weird. And he's and it's what? Why is there an editor all right, Scott, you know what? This ain't Cinemax, buddy.
The editor is the real villain of that season.
Yeah.
But also the other thing,
I've never wanted to have less sex than I do when I watch any.
That's the next episode.
Yeah.
That's the next episode on our rewatch.
Watching him and Lila this afternoon.
Yeah. Gareth was watching him and Lila, and then even Gareth had mentioned how he's thrusting like a dog.
Yeah, he was. He was that noise you just did. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I did it. I did enough for all of us.
But
it's very undignified. It makes sex look undignified, and it makes me want to go to church or something. Man,
Gonna have a cold shower.
Yeah, what am I doing with my life?
Uh,
There's a sex scene in season 1 that's very tasteful between Deb and Rudy. You remember? It's like very like, ooh, what's
Yes.
that? It's very cheeky. What, just little flashes of, ooh, there's her thigh, and ooh, what?
Ooh.
Huh?
I'll tell you what. I was watching that episode on my lunch break at work on my last rewatch, and then I decided I was going to go for a walk. So I take my phone with me, right, and I'm walking out of the building. And your phone ever do that thing where it like suddenly decides that the video you were watching should start playing without you doing anything?
Yeah.
And I didn't have headphones in, so I'm walking through this building, and all of a sudden, in the middle of that sex scene, the sound comes back on. And all you can hear is, it sounds like I'm watching hardcore pornography on my phone.
Oh no! And you,
Because
the
Deb
kids
is-
were on. The kids came to your work for a field trip that day, and it was like, what?
Oh,
it was like momentary like one of the most panicky. I was like, oh my God, I almost threw my phone against the wall just to make it stop.
heart stopping.
Luckily, nobody was really around in my immediate vicinity to comment on it, but man, my heart stopped. But real quick, the one other thing about season 8 I wanted to point out is that I think it's a crime. You think the last season of a show about a serial killer is going to be like the bloodiest, most, high stakes, violent season of the show, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody likes the kill room scenes. They're part of the reason that the show is so unique. There is only one traditional kill room scene in the final season of Dexter, and it sounds fucked up of me to say. They don't even show it. That sounds weird to say, but
You pervert.
Yeah, I know. It
Show
makes me
it
sound
to
like
me.
like
Show
some
me
teenager,
your
like,
pop.
show me the sex. But remember he finds the dude who's like eating people, and he has like the crock pot full of stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's the kill scene for that, and you just see Dexter take out his knife, and like it implies that he goes through with it, and it cuts away, and you never see it happen, right? And I was like, that was a cool scene, I guess. They never do a traditional kill room scene ever again on the show.
It's cheaper to do it that way. Hey, you don't got to get lighting. You don't got to get plastic. You don't got to get an actor who's okay being naked for 12 hours while they shoot it,
I mean, that's true, but at that point in the show, I feel like
I agree.
You pull out all the stops for like that. There honestly should have been a epic kill room scene at the end for Saxon.
Yeah,
probably
stabbed in the neck,
you know what?
Dexter walked away.
I did like that scene, like just on a base level, it was cool. I was like, damn, but it did not feel like series finale material.
Yeah, well, look at Miguel Prado. His eyes were bulging out, weren't they, when Dexter was doing him?
Miguel Prado's scene was so good.
He went out like a boss.
I killed my brother,
Trinity.
and I killed yours.
Yeah. Ooh, that was so good.
Yeah. Well, those kill table scenes were a motif for the show, weren't they? You'd have your kill of the week.
I hope they don't scrap him. Because like, does he just go back to doing it the way he always did it?
I don't know, but he used to have a little chat with his victim, and it would often give you a little bit of insight into where his mind's at that time.
I think at the very least they need to keep that, right?
Building. Yeah, it was good character building sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll go back to that. So, I mean, one of the questions I'd written down to ask you guys was, what do you want to see in season 9? And obviously, Nick, you want to see the kill table back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Here's another one. Do we think want to see Harry come back?
That's what I was going to say about what I want to see in season 9. About Harry. I guess this isn't a great answer because I'm on the fence. I don't know if I want to see Harry back. I know he's been in the show. He's our man, right? Since the beginning. I used to really like Harry in the when he was flashbacks, right? And it's just a personal taste of mine. I really hate when characters have visions and stuff because I feel like that's really unrealistic. If a person's literally seeing something, they're a crazy person. But shows and movies will do that. We're like, oh, he's seeing his grandma and she's giving him advice, whatever. Season 3 did it, brought in Ghost Harry, and it was appropriate because Dexter's life was changing. Like, oh my God, I've never done that. I've never been like this.
Right.
And then I feel like season 4 was the same thing. But eventually, all of his conversations with Harry just kind of became things that he used to say in his internal monologue.
Right.
Oh shit, I got to kill this person. Harry, Dexter, you got to get things under control. You got to go pick up Aster at her ballet recital. Oh, I know, Harry, I got this. And I don't know.
I
I don't know if we're gonna see him. And I believe in season 8, didn't they give Harry a little send off? He walked into the pearly gates or whatever. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he was kind of like toodles, and then he like faded away like Anakin Skywalker or something.
Yeah, and that was the scene I was talking about, like right before when he basically says his dark passenger is gone. I think kind of it's weird to think about because he's talked about his dark passenger a lot in the show, and he's also had conversations with Harry. But I almost feel like a lot of times Harry was meant to be kind of like the physical manifestation for the audience of his dark passenger. Because literally in the scene where he says he doesn't need to do this anymore is the scene when Harry just kind of disappears. But to answer your question about whether we wanted to come back, I mean, I feel like it's a component of the show that I think was, hit or miss, but I think it was still an important part of the show. The question is, does it necessarily have to be Harry anymore?
Oh, I know what you're getting at. I know what he's getting at. I think the idea is if Deb comes back, the only way Deb could come back would be through the ghost dad mechanic.
Right. And to be honest, I feel like the show, Deb was like just as much, she is like 50% of the show. I almost feel like a season without her in some way is going to feel like a lesser season.
Yeah. I
maybe I'm wrong, but
the heart of the show.
Right. And
Dexter was the protagonist, but Deb was the heart of it.
And when you think about it, the character that Dexter is now, or he would be now, his whole exile thing was in response to the decisions he made leading to Deb's death. So, like, you would think if he was going to be having inner monologues with anybody, it would be with his sister at this point. I feel like at this point, she's a more important character to him than Harry was. Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah, I want to see more Deb. I want to see more Deb, so
I'm for that. But I mean, if I really think about him, it's gonna just be more the same, right? It's gonna be a guilty conscience type thing. Dexter, you haven't changed. You say you changed. She's almost gonna be a real drag, which I guess maybe that's necessary. But Deb's not gonna be funny. She's not gonna.
Well, think about it this way.
She's not gonna be helping Dexter at all.
Well, first of all, I think she has to be funny, but somehow they got to find a way for her to be funny. But when you think about it, they implied pretty early on when they started doing the ghost Harry thing that the way he pictured Harry and the way he talked to Harry in his head was very different than what Harry was actually like. Because in his head, Harry was, very much used to seeing him do the things that he does and is very comfortable with what he is. But in reality, he found out what Dexter really was and killed himself. And he was disgusted. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would imagine if he's talking to Deb in this new season in his head, it's going to be more of an idealized version of how he would want their relationship to be if it had gone on.
Yeah, I mean, Harry it wasn't ghost dad, was it? It was a manifestation of his inner monologue, wasn't it? Yeah. Although for a while I guess there was a conversation probably at the time of what actually does Harry represent? Is Harry the dark passenger? Is Harry a representation of Dexter's humanity? But I think you're right. It's just his internal monologue, isn't it? And if Deb showed up, it would be a continuation of that.
Yeah.
And we already have Dexter's noir monologue itself. It seems redundant. I want to see Deb, so I'll take it. But I'm just not crazy about it. He's got two different ways of expositing information to the audience,
Right.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording that being a revival season, and if it is just a one-shot deal, 10 episodes, that perhaps they would they go down the road of a little bit of fan service and bring someone back, a familiar face to sort of tie us back to the old days, to give us that nostalgia trip, in case it is a one season deal.
There's got to be some kind of fan service. It's just kind of hard to tell at this point what that would be, other than I think Ghost Deb is certainly a possibility. But I feel like anyone else kind of outside of that would be hard to justify working back in to the season. I mean, Harry obviously would still work. for obvious reasons.
If they get a good story for Batista, I'll take a little bending it. Like, oh, Batista was on vacation in upstate New York. Him and Audi. Remember his daughter Audi? Well, they were up here, and what? Yeah, I'd take that if it's some. If it's something good, I'll take it.
I mean, and I think the underlying factor here is if it's one of the characters that people largely liked, and I think Batista has always been one of them, even if his side stories sometimes sucked, like people liked Batista as a character. So I would love to see them find a justifiable way to bring him back. But
I'm gonna be so pissed.
It's gonna be hard.
I'm gonna be so pissed if they go out of the way to bring back Batista's sister or something like ridiculous like that.
Jamie.
But Dexter here's like, Batista's in town. Oh, great, and he gets all excited. Hey, Angel, huh? And it's Jamie or whatever.
Yeah.
Hi, Dexter. What's up?
Oh Lord. To be honest, outside of those we already discussed, I feel like the only obvious ones which we've also discussed were Hannah and Harrison, but I think different vibes, different feelings about those, obviously, for other reasons.
Here's a theory. What if Dexter kills somebody in the same manner that he used to? The body gets found, entered into the police computer, and it flags something up in Florida that it's the same MO as the Bay Harbor Butcher, and that gets perhaps a now retired Detective Batista. Perhaps that gets his spidey sense going, and he makes a trip up north.
Certainly possible. Although I'm wondering if like, what did we say her name was? Was it Jamie Chung? Was it,
Jamie Chung?
Yeah. The Dragon Ball movie.
I feel like she is going to kind of play the role of like the outside investigator who has sneaking suspicions that Dexter is not who he says he is, or something, or maybe she comes to town for other reasons and then kind of realizes that, oh, Dexter here is maybe who I should be focusing on. I don't know. I've started watching like true crime stuff a lot lately, like documentaries and whatnot, and I've found them very fascinating. And the thought of seeing Dexter as a character through the lens of like a true crime detective sounds pretty exciting. I hope they do something with that. I hope it's not just like some, 10-minute side story that's nothing really, because that would be cool, I feel like.
Yeah, well, maybe she's the one that, rather than Batista, maybe she's the one that gets wind of a kill in the Massachusetts area that matches the MO. Perhaps she's just done a series on the Bay Harbor Butcher, a podcast series. Yeah. So it's fresh in her mind, and suddenly there's this body that's found up north, and that's what brings her to the area.
Yeah, I just had a thought. I don't know anything, but she could be our conduit into fan service. She could be in Miami, and that's the excuse for like, oh, here's Batista's cameo, here's Masuka's cameo, and now they're gone. You know what I mean? Like just for fan service, like she's doing investigation, and Batista's at his beachside house, and he's kind of old man fit. He's kind of been working out, but he's 60 something, and he's like, Dexter Morgan. Now that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
That's a good theory. I hadn't thought of that. I like that.
Well, then eventually she'll go meet up with him in Boston or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that could just, because you get your fan service in, but then Clyde Phillips doesn't really have to worry about like, how does Masuka get in the mix for the story?
Yeah.
That's not a bad thought. I think you've got it. I think.
Here we go. Boom. That's a Gareth Watkins exclusive.
Yeah.
Hey, fellas. I apologize, but I do have to roll out here. If I hang up on this, is it going to interrupt your recording or anything like that?
No, you're free to go, my friend. Okay. Thanks very much for
thank you, Nick,
giving up your time this afternoon at what was I appreciate very short notice.
Oh yeah, no problem. This has been a pleasure.
It's been great to chat to you and hear your thoughts. So thanks.
I look forward to hearing from you guys again when the new season is rolling.
Oh, we gotta do another one once the trailer drops or something.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
all right.
Y'all have a great afternoon.
Take it easy.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Dissecting Dexter.
But Aster and Cody probably not coming back, right?
Nah, I don't think so.
Nah.
They wouldn't.
It's a shame because in my idealized version of Dexter, they're so important to him. They're, that's in the early seasons, but you're in the midst of rewatching. Yes. They are his humanity.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be, but that's just not the way it was for the last 4 years of the show. And it's like it wouldn't ring true if suddenly Aster and Cody came back, and Dexter was like, "Oh, those kids that I think about all the time, and I remember their birthdays and everything," you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. I know. Well, that's the thing. Hey, let's get controversial. You want it? Let's do it, dude. So a lot of people think about Dexter. They go, oh, the first 4 seasons were good, and they were good. But I feel like maybe the last 4 seasons wouldn't be as bad. And I'm gonna sound whiny here if they didn't kill Rita, because they kill Rita and then they don't have the guts to go through with the implications of like now Dexter's a single dad. Because they just got, now Dexter got rid of those kids, and Dexter's life gets better now. Dexter's life improved after Rita died. He's got more free time. He starts having sex with other ladies. Yeah. Like, his life, I feel like, that was a misstep, killing Rita like that. Just because they didn't have the guts. If they went through with it, and hey, here's the fantasy. I'm gonna let you talk. Here's a fantasy. You ready?
Go.
This is never gonna happen, but this is what I dream about at night. Season 9, the revival, and they pull are you familiar with like the Halloween movies? I think we already talked about this. How every Halloween movie just disregards everyone before it. It's very selective. Halloween 3 ignores Halloween 1 and 2. Halloween 4 ignores Halloween 3. Halloween 5 ignores Halloween 3 and 4. It's all crazy to eventually the most recent one from 2018 ignores everything but Halloween 1 and 2.
Yes.
If I would squeal if season 9 just picked up after season 4. Rita did die, but season 9 was just Clyde Phillips saying, "Fuck it, here's my season 5," and it's 10 years later since Rita's died, and so then that makes it easy because we don't really have to watch Dexter struggle being a single dad, because that doesn't make good TV. Watching Dexter be stressed.
That's not the show. That's not the Dexter we want, is it?
Yeah, it's not really the Dexter we want, but it's the Dexter we deserve. That sounds like some Batman shit. It's the Dexter we deserve. If you're gonna kill Rita, go through with like your promise of like now Dexter's single dad. But yeah, season 9 could have picked up. Well, Rita's dead, and now, but all the hard stuff is over because Aster's gone away to college, Cody's in high school, And I don't know. That's just the fantasy I have. That'll never happen, but wouldn't that be nice though? Because we'd still be in Miami, and it'd still be fun.
We would. I did feel that after what happened with Rita, that Dexter should have just completely unraveled, because that family unit was what was anchoring him, really.
He almost could have been. I mean, this is really dark, but he almost could have like been very terrorizing or controlling of his family. Maybe Aster and Cody want to go to the grandma and grandpa. He's like, no. You're my kids, he could have kind of really clung on to them, trying to get some control, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. But like you say, it doesn't necessarily make good TV for a serial killer show. But I mean, maybe a clever writer could have found a way to do it, like Clyde Phillips, perhaps.
Like he hopefully can.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic that this season's going to be good, given the amount of time they've had to think about this, and that Michael C. Hall is on board. But then, as I think we said at the time, his career hasn't exactly gone stellar since Dexter finished.
Yeah, I'm a cynic. I'll be the cynical. You can be the good guy. I'll be the cynic. You're like, Michael C. Hall agreed to come back because it's a great story. And I'm also like, yes, well, because he's also not a big star anymore,
Yeah.
He's done some movies or TVs that haven't taken off. He's in a weird band,
Yeah. He'll be getting a good payday for this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially if it's just a one-off. And, I mean, the comment about whether this is just a one-shot deal, I think it was just an off-the-cuff remark in an interview that he gave recently, where he said, someone said, "Is this the start of a regular thing coming back?" And I think he just kind of kept it sort of ambiguous and just said, "Well, who knows?" Sort of never say that type of thing.
Well, yeah, you know what? And I'm glad if you actually read up on that. That's great, because I'm practicing something I'd hate. I'm just reciting a headline I read. I didn't even read the article. When I hear that, Dexter could be more than one season. Yeah. I didn't even read. Yeah, you're right. He could have just been like, well, I don't know. And if you got a tinfoil hat on, you could say, well, he's just misleading you, because hypothetically he would know if Dexter dies at the end, right?
He would.
So, so he could be misleading, maybe.
As he would. as he should.
Yeah. If he was privy, yeah.
If he was privy. Well, he would have been. I mean, I think Clyde Phillips went to him at the beginning with his ideas for the season. But maybe if he does survive the season, then it'll come down to audience, I suppose, audience figures, and well, probably less so critical reaction, because that doesn't seem to play a part in whether a show gets canned or not. But it'll be the figures, won't it? It'll be the numbers.
Yeah. I do just wonder about. I don't even like the idea I'm about to say, but like I feel like if you're going to end a show almost always has to end. A drama has to end with like the main character's death, because if Dexter doesn't die, you can always come back, right? And I guess Showtime would like that.
Yeah.
But if this ends with Dexter just, oh well, he's still by himself in the wood, it's like, oh well, why did you even come back? But I don't. It's the conflict, because not like I want him to die. I'm not jonesing for like, let's get some. Dexter needs to die because he's a bad man. I don't feel that. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, if he is to meet his end, and they do it in a logical and sensible way, in a manner that's been earned through the season, then I'm okay with that. Because I was never clamoring for a revival. As I say, I'd reached acceptance with how the show had ended, and I'd moved on. I've accepted that, when it was good, it was really good, and when it was bad, it was, But I was okay. So I just hope it's a decent story. It's a coherent story, and does the characters is in good service to the characters, and true to who Dexter is.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised. I wouldn't even be mad, because Dexter, I know we keep referencing things because you and I have been talking a couple times over the years since the show ended. We've kept in touch here and there, and we've really been talking a lot recently. And I remember I sent you like a picture of Dexter's face, where it's just like the Dexter of the most recent seasons. He wasn't funny anymore. We've said that, but like he was always just in a bad mood, and he didn't even you couldn't even believe him as like he's supposed to be the likable office guy. Like even in season 6 or whatever, it was like Dexter's always pissed when he's at work, and why do people like him?
Yeah.
Now in this new show, I imagine he could have a whole new persona invented for him. I don't expect him to be Mr. Friendly. He's probably going to be very standoffish to everybody, for his own safety.
Yeah.
In the new show, right?
Yeah.
Under his new persona of, but I wouldn't be mad if if Dexter regressed to being more cheerful or anything, like, oh yeah, I remember, Dexter people used to like Dexter, because the idea is people would be surprised when they found out Dexter was a killer. But then when you got to the later seasons where Dexter was always moping and crying and thinking about like, oh, my son has darkness in him or something. Yeah, you'd be like, oh man, he's got some demons in him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, Dokes would be spinning in his grave.
Yeah. Oh, Dokes. Why can't Dokes be back?
Oh.
I love that man. But we won't see him again.
I'm in the thick of that now with the episode I just watched. The most recent one I watched before we recorded was the one where Dexter says, "I own you."
Yeah.
And that's a good episode. There's some good stuff that happens in that. Unfortunately, it's got all that thrusting and grunting as well. But there are some great moments in that one.
Oh,
it's so good, that tension between the two of them. So good.
Some people say like, well, it's always end on top, right? Leave them wanting more. But I feel like I could have used a little bit more Dokes. Again, if you would have gone with my brilliant idea, make season 2 in the perfect world where you plan the whole show out, season 2 is the season 5 story, and the show ends after 5 seasons or something, right?
Yeah.
Dokes could have died, and maybe the Dokes Dexter tension couldn't have lasted all the way to season 5, maybe. But man, I could have used one more season of Dokes.
No matter what you try, no matter when, no matter how hard you work, I'll always be a step ahead of you for one simple reason.
And what's that?
Let me ask you this, because this will tie back into season 9. something I'm looking forward to my rewatch when I do it is I'm in a weird morbid sense. I'm looking forward to watching the later seasons that I don't enjoy as much, to kind of relish in the cringe. Like, ooh, I can't believe Dexter. What to do that? Do you remember the character Elway?
Elway
was.
Oh, was he a private detective?
Yes, I forgot he existed until very recently. And yeah, because they introduced him in season 8. He's another one of these almost Dokes-like characters or whatever. Where, yeah, he's Deb's boss.
Yes.
Because remember, Deb leaves the force.
Yeah.
And so Deb works for him. And yeah, he's Deb's boss. And nowadays, in today's vernacular, you'd say he's simping for Deb. He's super into Deb, and she's super not into him. He gets whiff of Hannah. His whole thing is Hannah. Eventually, that's where his storyline leads him in season 8. Is Hannah McKay. I'm gonna become. I don't know if he cares about fame or something. Like, I'm gonna be the guy who caught Hannah McKay. But yeah, I mean, when we last saw Elway, Hannah knocked him out on a bus. Do you remember that? It's so. This is what I'm looking forward to.
Yes.
It's so crazy. It's like she's about to take. Hannah's got Harrison, and they're about to go to Miami International Airport to fly out to Argentina or something. Hannah, from what I remember, and hopefully one of your viewers doesn't correct me. What's his name? Elway like corners her on the bus and like sits next to her like, oh, I got you now, bitch. Yeah. Here I am. And then she like stabs him with the M99 needle like in the leg or something.
Yeah,
and he like
in the leg. Yeah,
passes out. Yeah, and so Elway, do we think he's gonna come back? Because at least because I remember that was almost a loose end because it was like they didn't kill him, but he was privy to the fact that like Dexter Morgan is sleeping with famed fugitive Hannah McKay. I guess what I'm saying is they could bring him back without it being too much of an eye roll. Like, really?
Yeah, it would make sense. It is. You're right. It is a loose end from season 8. Would anyone remember him who hasn't?
Well, the viewers, I don't know.
The show. Your average viewer. I think your average viewer didn't see that Geller was.
Oh, that's true.
Dead.
I remember that. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And the Scott Reynolds on the podcast was like, aha, we tricked you.
Oh God, I remember. Those are good times, man. Yeah. I remember that. We called that.
We saw it coming a mile off.
Yeah, a bunch of your viewers called it in the first episode. Like, I think he might be a ghost. Keep an eye out. Let's see.
Yeah. And then there was that scene in the coffee shop or something, and the waitress never acknowledged him and set one place. And the clues were there. If you had that thought in mind, it all made sense. Yeah. And it was so clear. It was so telegraphed. But that's because that's just down to audiences these days being a lot smarter, and we've seen so many clever TV shows pull these tricks.
It's true. I remember being blown away by The Sixth Sense. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, that's the similarity, isn't it? That's the inspiration for that trick, I think.
Yeah, you can't do that again.
No.
You make yourself into a monster so you no longer bear responsibility for what you do.
You don't think there are monsters in this world? You don't believe people are evil?
You're listening to Dissecting Dexter.
I'll show you evil.
Since the show ended, Daniel Licht has died. The music, the guy who composed all the music, he unfortunately passed.
Right.
So that's an interesting topic for pure speculation. I don't know if we know anything, but I can imagine I don't know if they'd reuse all of his music, but like they'll reuse themes, right? They might recompose something.
I mean, given the show's relocation, because some of the music had a Latin feel, didn't it?
Yes.
At Far Miami, which was appropriate. But whether there'll be some new motifs for the new location with some of the old themes that were for Dexter, like the blood theme.
Yeah. Oh well, even the main Dexter theme song that was a Rolf Kent. Daniel Licht didn't do that. That was Rolf Kent. But even that is going to be a sore thumb if they try to reuse that for the new thing, right? I feel like they might even try to go classy. A lot of shows are classy and they don't even have opening themes. Or, it'll be like Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. I hate bringing that up again. But, it's like a 4-second thing. Like, here's the show. Enjoy.
Not waste time. Yeah, I mean, Dexter had a full-on title sequence, didn't it? But the music was slightly quirky, which is of course in keeping with the original tone of the show.
Exactly. Yeah. Even that. Yeah. Even it's in the original run that theme song almost was out of place eventually in the show. Because they never reshot it, right? Even when Dexter was living with Rita, it was still Dexter by himself in the apartment. Yeah. I have no doubt they're gonna reshoot the opening at the very least. If they do decide to reuse the same song, they're gonna have to reshoot it.
Yeah. I think they'll have to. I would be quite happy if they did a new spin on the theme.
Yeah, a new arrangement, but the same song.
Yeah. I think that would be. I think that would be good. All right. Well, thanks very much, Travis, for joining me tonight. It's been brilliant to catch up. It's like old times, isn't it? It's like we've not paused for 7 years and picked up where we left off with the.
It's beautiful. I want to come. I want to come back, man. We do a new trailer. I want to come back.
Yeah, before season 9 comes around, I think that would be necessary. And then
do you remember Sandra?
Yes.
I kept in touch with her for a while. I feel a little guilty because I feel like I left her hanging. I feel like she messaged me once and I never messaged back. But yeah, for a couple years, her and I would be emailing still. And Sandra, if you're out there, email me. Or I guess I should email you. Maybe I'll email you, but email me if I don't email you.
Yeah, well, I would. It would be lovely if when season 9 comes around and we start going through feedback, that some of the old names come out of the woodwork. That would be really good, and get the old gang back together. Because we had a good little community of regular feedbackers, and it was nice. We had some good times.
You were a pioneer for sure. Podcasting wasn't as huge as it is now. You probably never even thought about getting like an Audible or Squarespace or Sherry's Berries.
Not until later. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's this like part and parcel with podcasting now, but. Podcasting was smaller, and you were the only Dexter podcast for up until the official one. I feel like.
Well, there was Jeremy Headington. He had what did he call his
the Dark Passenger or something?
The Dexter, not the Dexter podcast. It may have just been the Dexter podcast. And he disappeared after season 4.
You're right about that. Yeah.
So then I was, and I was the only one doing a rewatch, which is probably how I established a bit of an audience back in those days. Mm-hmm. People looking for Dexter content, and there wasn't much to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, you were you were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean to be a downer, but I'm sure that there's more than just your podcast out there now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's unfortunate. Yeah.
And I bet when season 9 comes around, there'll be a dozen or so podcasts. Who may then go back and do a rewatch of their own.
Well, see, I don't know about rewatch. That might still be your thing. But there's definitely, when season 9 comes around, there's going to be Dexter dedicated podcasts, as well as, now we got things like IGN and Collider and Nerd City, USA, all these things that just, they make their money off talking about Star Wars and Marvel or anything pop culture. They'll end up having let's talk about Dexter this week.
The Dexter edition.
But first, Geek Crate gets you all the greatest things that to your house.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll wrap up the recording now. I'll just say thanks everybody for listening. Thanks again to you, Travis, and to Nick for joining me to chew the fat about Dexter, old and new. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope that. Speaking of old and new, we have some old and new listeners joining the Dissecting Dexter train. We'll get together again, hopefully before season 9 airs. Perhaps, like you say, when we've got a trailer to talk about, and we've got something really juicy to tuck into. But in the meantime, if anyone has any thoughts about season 9, fire them over to dissectingdexter@gmail.com. Or you can send me a voicemail if you like, and we'll maybe get a feedback episode if enough stuff comes in, or maybe we can go over it when we next get together for a Zoom meeting or whatever, and and have a chat. But in the meantime, until then, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be dissecting some more Dexter very soon. Until then, goodbye.